Hey, it's Lily back to talk with you about some more intentional living practices that I have acquired in my journey over the past few years. Um, so, you might have noticed that I didn't make a video last week, and today's Friday, and I'm just now making this video. So, my plan was derailed. My plan for one video a week was derailed by my own workings. And that presents an excellent opportunity for us to talk about a core intentional living practice today of mine, which is forgiveness. So, in my experience, you cannot live intentionally without a sort of practice along the side of self-forgiveness. And again, I'm certainly not an expert on forgiveness. It's not even like something that comes that naturally to me or that easily to me. Excuse me. But I have learned really specifically over the past year, when I began thinking more about forgiveness, I've learned that I'm not perfect. So, and neither are other people. And I don't think anyone living intentionally would say that the goal is to be perfect. But I think that the society we live in, the culture we live in, we can get caught up in expectations very easily. And we want everything to go our way. That's kind of like why I'm living intentionally, right? Because I want to have maximum control over my own actions. And so I think for a while I thought, oh, well, if I just live intentionally and I'm like really thinking everything through before I'm doing anything, then I won't make any mistakes. And it just doesn't work that way, sadly. I still make mistakes. I'm still human. And I'm guessing so are you. So that's why I want to talk about forgiveness. And I figured the best way to go about this would be to give you 3 reasons or 3 ways in which a forgiveness practice can elevate your intentional living. So, the first one is a big one. You might want to get some more coffee before I get into this. Forgiveness is a huge topic, people, huge topic. Yeah. So the first way, and well, I won't say the biggest way, but definitely the primary way I have used forgiveness as a bonus to my intentional living practice is in letting go of past hurts. And I'm sort of revising that to say letting go of hurts, past or otherwise. Because I think when I say past hurts, automatically I go back to when I was 8 or 9 years old. So it could be like way distant past, it could be recent past, it could be yesterday, it could be an ongoing something that's happening that you're not happy about. So let's just revise it to say letting go of hurts. And it's important to note, particularly in this case, everything around the practice of forgiveness is twofold. You're forgiving others, and you're also forgiving yourself. And, you can work on one or the other at a time. But for forgiveness to be powerful in your life, I think you're working on forgiving both yourself and others. But particularly in this way, in letting go of hurts, I have found it to be really empowering and powerful, to forgive myself. Because a lot of the times we look at forgiveness as like, okay, well, someone did something to me and I need to forgive that person if I want to be able to move on with my life, or I want to say goodbye, to that friendship, or I want to, see my therapist twice a month instead of every week. So I need to forgive that person. And that might be true. It probably is true. But I read something once, and I can't remember where I read it, that said, you can forgive yourself also. You can forgive yourself for believing what that person said, and you can forgive yourself for believing what they said every time they said it, until you stop believing. So my example for this is my childhood. I'm reaching way back. When I read that in a book, that I could forgive myself, what I immediately thought of is like the religious upbringing that I had, and how it's very easy for me to look back and say like, oh, that was patriarchy, that was organized religion, white supremacy, everything that goes along with that, and with the way that I was raised, the religion I was raised with. And it's easy for me to look back on that and say like, not easy, but, it makes sense for me to look back on that and say like, yes, I forgive those people, in the sort of way that I no longer want them to have power over my, my moment, what I'm living right now. I don't want to hang on to that. I hung on to it for a really long time, and it wasn't that fun. It certainly wasn't productive, and it didn't help me accomplish anything that I wanted to accomplish, except for maybe some good writing. But so I can look at that, and say, of course I want to, if that's what it takes, if forgiving is what it takes to move on with that, of course I want to do that. But when I read the line, you can forgive yourself also, I immediately thought of like myself as that little girl, not knowing any better, and believing what they said, and believing that, that was the only path, and that everyone's life looked the way our life looked. And I forgave her, because it wasn't her fault. She wasn't old enough to know any better, and she hadn't been introduced to any other philosophies or ways of living. And then I remember this moment and just feeling like, wow, that feels good, to forgive her. And I think we don't realize, like, it has very little to do with like reality, the way we see ourselves, even when we're looking back at ourselves in the past. We look back and we think like, why didn't I, rebel sooner? Why didn't I know any better? Like, how did they pull the wool over my eyes? And this doesn't have to be about, a huge organized religion plot against your life. It could be a partner, who wasn't nice to you, or it could be parents who maybe did you disservice, sibling rivalry, it could be anything. And when we look back, we're looking back with the knowledge that we have today, and the self that we have today would not fall for that, right? We're way too smart for that. And so we're thinking like, how could I have let that go on so long? Or, just why didn't I wake up sooner? Why didn't I rebel sooner, or louder, or more, with more strength? So I found that forgiving myself for that part of my life, for being human and young and immature, and naive, helped me to, that was like sort of the final piece for me to let go. So So that's an example of how forgiveness can help us let go of hurts. And the benefit when we allow forgiveness to work in that way is that we can truly live in the moment. So when memories of that time period come up, and they will, I mean, hardly a day goes by that I don't remember something from my childhood, but it doesn't have the same hold over me. I'm not reliving it. I'm just remembering it. So the power of that memory has really been taken away through forgiveness. I can stay present in this moment, and I can think about whatever, I can figure out why that memory is surfacing, and then I can move on. But throughout that, whatever that thinking process is like, I'm able to stay present and to live in the moment, which is a huge part of living intentionally for me is mindfulness. Okay, the second way forgiveness can elevate your intentional living practice is that it can help you release expectations. So you're probably familiar with the sort of self-helpy philosophy that tells us to be unattached to an outcome. So the this or something better kind of mindset where, yes, I'm manifesting such and such a new job, but I'm also open to a whole new way of living. That's just an example, but it could be anything. It could be like, I want a new computer, but I'm also open to, I want money for a new computer, but I'm also open to, someone giving me a computer or my computer magically starting to work again. Okay. So that's the idea of being some simple examples of being not attached to the outcome when you're manifesting or when you're sitting with your desires. So the way forgiveness works in tandem with all of this is that I found, again, I'm not perfect, so I'm not always unattached to the outcome. I do have expectations, and as hard as I may try, sometimes even when I think I don't have expectations, I do. And so very easily that could become something that I hold on to. Like if someone lets me down and I've been harboring this expectation of, well, I know this person, it's not in their character to stand me up for a lunch date, so why all of a sudden did they not show up? And that can very quickly spiral into, spending an hour or an afternoon or a day, reevaluating a friendship that maybe, doesn't need to be reevaluated. Maybe the person didn't feel good. Maybe the person, something else came up that was higher on their priority list. So, and I use these examples because I think friendship is a really good example of what I'm sort of thinking of as like a day-to-day release of expectations. We sadly do not have time to talk about all of my philosophies on adult friendships, but we'll put a pin in it, and maybe I'll do a video on female friendships, because those are the people I'm friends with. But certainly intentional friendship. Maybe I'll do a video on that one day. But for now, I'll use that as an example because I think we quickly, when we're in a relationship with someone, we quickly get into expectations because there's history. Over time, we come to expect that a person is going to behave a certain way. And when I sat down to think about how this could work in real life, like how can I actually not have expectations of my friends, people that I rely on, and you can't. I mean, I think you are gonna have expectations of them, and And that's okay. So maybe the goal is not to not have expectations, but then when they let us down, to just be able to forgive them and move on. And that's the unattached to the outcome part. Okay. So anyway, when I sat down to think about how this works in real life, one of my friendships came up for me that really ever since we've known each other a very long time, over a decade now. And for a while we worked together and hung out together, so we were very close when we were younger, like 20s and 30s. And there was this magical component of our relationship, I think because we were, for whatever reason, we were like very authentic with each other from the outset. And there was this magical component of our relationship where if we let one another down, if we said we would do something and we didn't do it, or we made a date and one of us wanted to cancel, or whatever you can think of that friends, in ways in which friends let each other down, we just, and this wasn't a conversation we had, it was just like this was a component of the friendship, a magical component of the friendship where we just didn't take it personally. I think we knew from the beginning that we were both broken in different ways. And so I think we did have very low expectations of each other and of the friendship. And in some totally crazy way, that really helped our friendship work over an extended period of time. And I really think that's probably why we're still friends today. I think today, we're both the kind of people where we don't make commitments that we're not going to keep, or at least we try our very hardest not to make commitments that we're not going to keep. But at the end of the day, you might still disappoint someone. And so that has been a lesson, that friendship has been a lesson to me, that what someone else does is about them, not about me. And I can't tell you how many times that particular philosophy saved that friendship, and has also, maybe saved is too strong of a word, but has really influenced the way I carry out my friendships. And it also almost preempts the whole self-forgiveness thing for me in a way, because I have really low expectations of myself when it comes to friendships. Partly because I'm still learning how to be a good friend and what that means to me and what it means to other people. And I've found some women that I do feel close to, but I'm still in the thick of it, because I didn't have close friends for a very long time, at least not in a social circle kind of way. So when I have low expectations of myself, I want to do that thing, but I think we all know that I might change my mind depending on how, much sleep I get, or if my kids are crazy, or if we run out of coffee, or I forget to fill my medication, if I have work piling up. There's so many things about my own life in which I could wake up and make a different decision. So it's important that I don't expect too much out of myself. And in my case, it's important that my friends don't expect too much out of me. I guess I'd have to ask my friends. You guys can weigh in here. But I feel like this is coming across that I'm like and see, I said I didn't have time to talk about friendship, but I feel really strongly about it, so it's hard for me not to talk about it. But it's not in a flighty kind of way, in a I'm not dependable kind of way. I think it's just a realistic, this is the bar, and it's a very low bar. We all know that. And that way I'm not constantly making these commitments and then not following through and then having to forgive myself all over again. Total tangent. I just went on. Sorry. Not sorry. Okay, the third reason. Quick coffee break. or the third way in which I found that forgiveness can elevate my intentional living practices is in a very, this could work on two levels. It could work on the level with number one, how I'm letting go of hurt. But it also works in a very practical day-to-day level. And I'm calling it moving on. So I think the danger in not forgiving is that we are living in the past, or we have the tendency to live in the past. And that isn't helpful in intentional living. We're making choices to influence our present. And then, of course, that's going to have ripple effects to the future. So living in the past isn't all that helpful, I have found. So moving on, forgiveness allows us to move on, because here's what's going to happen. And I just want to keep this on the practical day-to-day level, but I think I'm going to trust that you're intelligent enough to kind of apply it to those other big areas of your life. But I'm going to keep it on the, like, I've had a really shitty week level. Or like, I fucked up on something, like, so stupid, so simple, like, why did I do that? And these moments happen all the time, every day. We have shitty weeks all the time. I actually had a shitty week this week. My kids were home Monday for the holiday. Then they were home Tuesday for a snow day. And then Wednesday, I woke up with a headache. And I had the headache all day Wednesday and all day Thursday. So, for circumstances outside of my control, other than the fact that I could have hydrated myself much better while my children were here, but I was guzzling coffee, so the water got left behind. But basically, at the time, these things were happening. I didn't have a lot of control over what was happening. And, that made me feel like I wasn't living intentionally. That circumstances were just happening to me. And I was reacting instead of acting. And so I wake up Friday, today, and everything's great. I don't have a headache. I had a nice dinner last night. I'm still not really sleeping that well, but my headache's gone. I started my period, so I'm feeling better about that. Not as bloated. Sort of ready to get back into the day. And the first feeling I have, even among that sort of euphoria, newness, it's Friday, the first feeling I have is like, I wish I could go back to Monday and, like, start again and, like, do all this stuff that I had put in my calendar that I was going to do this week that I didn't do. That, my friends, is guilt. And I'm not a big fan of guilt. It doesn't speak to me. It's not one of my values. However, I have learned that guilt shows up for a reason. And so for me, guilt is a sign. It's a sign that I've messed up in an area in which I care about. So in this case, maybe the area I messed up in is work. Okay, so I didn't edit the articles I was supposed to edit, or had planned on editing. So I feel guilty about that. And so if I let that guilt fester, then I'm not practicing forgiveness, and it harbors. It hinders me from living intentionally, because then I'm living in the guilt instead of living in the moment. And I can't move on. Okay? And I think that's one of the reasons we kind of gravitate toward guilt, because we like to beat up on ourselves. We like to berate ourselves. it's comfortable to feel negative about ourselves. And that's sad, but it's true. It's a place we are comfortable. So, you know, festering guilt, that's a common experience. But it's just not useful when you're living intentionally. So what the practice that I'm working on is recognizing guilt for what it is when it shows up, for recognizing that it's a sign that I messed up in an area in which I care about, and then forgiving myself, and then making a plan. How am I going to do this differently next time so I don't have to feel the guilt? So that's where I'm at now. And I think what the hope or the promise of being able to move through the guilt, being able to use forgiveness as a way to move through guilt. And we're talking about self-forgiveness, okay? Self-forgiveness. To move through that guilt. The promise there is that I can grow. So growth is the benefit. When I'm able to move on, I'm able to grow. That's a big benefit for me. Huge. Way more of a benefit than, retroanalyzing my actions, which is comfortable, but not fun and not useful. So growth, being a dynamic person, becoming more of the person that I want to be and that I know I am somewhere on the inside. So to me, that's growth. That's kind of in a way what this is all about, because with intentional living, there's no end point. I'm not like headed to a finish line. I'm just living intentionally every day. And that's exciting to me because that means like today I'm living intentionally and I'm this person and these are my values. And tomorrow, I don't know, tomorrow I will have grown. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. But certainly I think forgiving myself, so recognizing the guilt. I didn't edit the articles I was supposed to edit. I certainly did not keep the house in any sort of manageable array. I didn't go to the grocery store, all of these things that I should, quote, have been doing. I recognize the guilt. I move through it. I make a plan. Next time I'm going to drink more water. Maybe not watch as much TV at night. Maybe do some work. Still working on the plan. Definitely going to drink more water. And then I get to move on with my life. So that's a beautiful feeling. Yay, that's the end of my third video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I want my own URL. I only need a few more subscribers to do so. And also, I would love it if you think of someone who might benefit from hearing this video. If you would share it with them, that would be great. Thanks, and I'll talk to you next week.